Hi everyone, my name is Steph, this is the Novelty Corner, and welcome back to my channel. Welcome to the weekly book steep where I wrap up the last 7 days worth of reading. There is no drink making this morning because I've been up for a little bit, I've done some shopping, it's a long weekend, I needed a cold drink. So this is in my fun glass tumbler that says books are cheaper than therapy and twice as effective. You know, the glass tumbler that I love. It's my mum's lemon cordial. So she made some a little while back. I'm nearly out of it. I'm going to be really sad when it's gone. Like, I've got literally one more drink after this left. Hopefully she's made some more. So we are here to talk about the books that I read in the last week from the 28th of February until the 6th of March. I read 12 books this week, 2,182 pages. I had 5 rereads, most of them picture books. There was one adult reread in there. I had 1 DNF of an ARC and 2 books were read for projects, plus a couple of extra books that are for reviews on my kids channel, which don't come out to the end of the month. So I'm not going to talk about them now. I will be filming about them today in other videos, but I will come back and review them in release week for them at the end of March. And I've got to remember to do that because this brain and I, not great. I'll need to set up my notes for the rest of the month so that I remember to do it. Alrighty, as a quick sneak peek, these are the kids' review titles that'll come out later in the month. I had 4 rereads, 3 of them were picture books that I was reading at work with the kids as part of our inquiry unit. So it was To Stir With Love and Sundays Under the Lemon Tree. I also finished rereading Bravepaw and the Heartstone of Alluria by Wilkinson, which is book 1 in the Bravepaw series. It was our class novel. We finished it on Wednesday. They were very excited. Very upset that I did not start the second book immediately, but we will be starting it this week before I go on leave. And then my adult reread was Exit Strategy by Martha Wells, which also incidentally is one of the project books that I read in the past week as well, because I am vlogging reading the entire Murderbot Diary series all the way up to Platform Decay. I'm so excited, I'm loving this. It is like giving me life. Stay tuned, you will hear more about this a little bit later on. I also read Lavender Hill by Alissa Callen for my Australian Romance Author Spotlight. This video is already up so you can hear all of my thoughts in that particular video. So that brings us to the brand new to me books that I read this week that are not involved in any other video project. I finished my audiobook read of So Gay For You. They're best friends, they worked on the L Word together when the L Word was out. I've never actually seen the L Word, but I know of it. I remember it coming out and I remember sort of the significance of it coming out back in the day. I'm not a contemporary TV person. I'm a sci-fi TV person. So it's not something I particularly feel compelled to go and watch, but I was really interested because I just found the audiobook and thought, oh, that might be an interesting read. And it really was. Since finishing on the show, they've stayed friends, they've started a podcast together, and they just like talking about, you know, everyday things. And the podcast is kind of their journey to how they met, how they ended up on the show together, the bonds that were formed on the set, kind of the importance of the show for them at that time as queer people, at their journeys of coming out or being out. And it was a really interesting read, and I'm really glad that I picked it up because I didn't know anything about them. It was something to listen to that was a little bit different, and I'm glad that I picked it up. And it also helps because it means I've got another non-fiction book off my bingo board for this year, because we're a bit slow this year on the non-fiction. That's my own fault. If I actually started reading the books that I set for my personal curriculum, I would be further along. But of course, because I've set it, I am avoiding it. Then I read Under the Surface by N.R. Walker, which is her most recent release and the start of a new series. This is a paranormal queer romance set in a very remote town just outside of Hobart, which is in Tasmania, which is the little island state that is south of me. And we are following Sawyer, who is a police detective who saw something a bit strange one night, and he's being questioned kind of by an internal affairs department, but really it's not. It's like a sub-branch with potentially shady implications. He's recruited to be promoted and placed as the sole police officer in this very remote community that you can only reach by boat. It's a very small community, or so Sawyer thinks, and the townspeople there are just a little bit weird. It's only men. There's just something off. So he had seen what he thought was somebody jump into the water and shift shape into something else. Strange eyes, all that kind of deal. And everyone else has dismissed him as crazy, but this group that have recruited him, not so much. And when he gets to the town, he realizes there's something similar happening here. The leader of the town, Kieran, is less than happy to see him. This town doesn't really like outsiders. Turns out they are shifters. They don't like that term. I mentally blanked on what the term was that they used in the book because I read it on the 1st of March. Basically, they have animal forms in water, and they have tentacles. A first for N.R. Walker, as far as I'm aware. And it was kind of a really fun story and set up for the world. Basically, like they're so remote and they're so far south, and these communities of beings that are both human and sea creature have always been around. They've always stayed hidden from human communities, but something is happening, and their closest other group to them has has left their area. They've literally fled north because something is coming, and essentially there is some kind of big bad sea creature, which, I mean, if you think to all your sea creature myths, what could that possibly be? Who knows? But it's basically a fated mate story, and Kieran is a very reluctant person because no one has ever had a human fated mate before. And yeah, it was fun. Just be mindful though that if you're sensitive to anything that involves being in water or you have a fear of drowning, Sawyer finds himself in a couple of weird situations where he ends up in the water a lot, not of his own volition. And it's not intentional, but it does have kind of side effects. Just for anyone who wants to know, yes, the tentacles are used for exactly what you think they're going to be used for. All right, then I read Better Late Than Never by Ellie Blackbourne, which is part of the Slaybell Springs series, which is the same series as Drag Me Home Again. I did not love this book as much as I loved the first one, but it is a best friends to lovers story. It's a very short novella length story. He is a professional hockey player who is currently injured, and so he's back in his hometown and he is hanging out with his best friend who owns a cafe, and it's the middle of a snowstorm. He basically rescues her when the roof in her apartment begins to leak. They end up in a forced proximity situation, and they're forced to admit that they have feelings for one another that they've been ignoring and not talking about for a number of years. So the story itself was fine. Like, there was nothing actually wrong with the story. It just had one of the things that I don't love in a book, which is you literally have another protagonist. I don't care if that other protagonist is male, female, non-binary, whatever. I don't care. If they're offering to financially support you in a time of need and you are hell-bent on declaring your independence, and that offer of support is being offered without condition, like there's no condition attached to it, and you are still saying, no, I can't possibly do that because what about my independence? Independence would be going, okay, thank you for your offer. Let me work out a way that I can pay that back over time or whatever, if that's what you feel like you need to do, or accept it. Because this is a book, it's fictional. I understand that, like in real life, things like that always have conditions, but in book world, it doesn't have to. It can just be happy, and we can not deal with the angst of someone repeating over and over that they need to do this on their own because they're independent. And that is my rant. I also read A Rookie Mistake by Wren Hamilton, which is a queer hockey romance between an AHL player and a assistant coach who is a professional hockey player who's currently injured and is coaching while recovering. I don't know why I put myself in these situations, because one, I liked the book, I liked the characters, I liked the idea of it. We have Caden, who is a young player. He's just signed a contract with an AHL team. He has a father who is very controlling, is emotionally and physically abusive, and has basically dictated his career since Caden was young and showed some vague talent in playing hockey. And he's a great hockey player, but he doesn't love the sport. He doesn't even really want to be a hockey player, but he's doing it because he's been told to, and he can't see any way out. His mother has MS, and he believes he needs to provide and support the family because his father hasn't had work for a number of years. So there's a lot of controlling and manipulative behavior going on the part of his father, and Caden feeling really trapped. But his new team is a little bit of a distance from his family, so there's a little bit of space. And there he meets Asher, who is professional hockey player, someone that Caden has looked up to, and he's there as one of the new coaches. Asher recognizes that something is going on with Caden. He doesn't quite know what it is, and he's determined to try and help him because Caden's game is just a bit wonky. There is a mutual attraction. Both of them to themselves just agree just to put it out of their mind and just kind of focus on their job because, again, power dynamics. I did request to review this. I appreciate and know about myself that coach and player dynamics are not always my favorite. However, for some reason, I keep reading them. That's a red flag about me. Anyway, Caden's mum ends up in the hospital after she has a fall, and he tells Asher that he needs to leave. He needs to go and see his mum. They're in the middle of a string of away games, and Asher drives him to the hospital. And that's where he realizes that there is a lot of stuff going on at home for Caden that is hidden and is affecting him as a person. And through the course of the book, they eventually admit that they are attracted to one another. They probably shouldn't do anything about it, but they really can't help themselves. They've kind of fallen for one another, and they begin to explore this romance in secret. Caden's housemates and teammates recognize that something's going on. They're really happy for Caden and Asher, and so they don't say anything. However, eventually they do have to admit it when it is revealed, and that is a bit of a stressful tension. There is no third act breakup in the book, though. They're not willing to let the relationship go because of other people's perceptions. However, we are also having the story of Caden really beginning to unpack what he's doing in hockey, whether he needs to stay there anymore, and what can he do to get out from underneath his father's controlling behavior. So there is a lot of that family dynamic. There is the complicated nature and the power dynamic imbalance of their relationship. And it was good. Like I was turning pages and I wanted to keep reading. I know myself. I just need to always remember, if I'm choosing to read a coach and player romance, I'm doing this to myself. But I did enjoy it. It was really nice to try a new author and it was good. And then probably my favorite read of the week. I just love this. And it did make me cry. It was 30 Love by Tom Vellner, which is a new release queer tennis romance coming out. Guys, I can't tell you how much I hate tennis. Anyway, I love this book. It is a very weird, strange dichotomy. So we are following Leo. We are in Leo's perspective for the entire book. It's a single POV book and he is gay. He's been coached by his dad, but unlike the previous book where the father is very controlling, Leo's dad is in some ways, but it's because he was a professional and he coaches the way that he played. And over the course of the book, his father, who also has MS, so both of these books have MS in it. I always seem to do this. I have books that have very common themes running through it, but his dad's playing career ended because he was diagnosed with MS just before Leo was born. And so his dad has been trying to coach through that. But at the moment, his dad is not doing so great. He's getting older. Life is just affecting him more and more. From a parental arc perspective, the growth of his father across the book is amazing. And it's one of the scenes between Leo and his father at the end, towards the end of the book, that just had me sobbing. So anyway, Leo is a professional tennis player and he has this professional rival, Gabe. They have known each other since they were kids and Leo has never been able to beat Gabe. And it is a sore sticking point with him. At the very start of the book, he loses to Gabe in one of the Grand Slams and he's determined that he is going to win a Grand Slam because he's about to turn 30 and he's concerned that when he turns 30, basically his career is going to be done because everyone likes to condemn sports players when they hit 30 for whatever reason, because it's not like these people are elite athletes or anything. So then the book basically follows Leo over the course of the next year and the season of tennis. And we basically go to each Grand Slam across the course of the year. Did I realize that the Australian Grand Slam opened that season? No, had no idea. Why would I? I don't pay any attention to the Australian Open. There was a lot of tennis in here, so just be mindful of that. But we begin to see Leo's growth. His father has a stroke before the start of the Australian Open, and so that is quite a stressor, and Leo takes some time off to help out his family, and then comes back in for the new season and is starting to play. And his assistant coach has stepped up as his coach, and he has a very different coaching style to Leo's father, so there is a little bit of growth in terms of Leo's game because suddenly he's a little bit freer to try different things. He doesn't feel like he has to do everything that his father wants him to do. Like he's always tried to live up to his father's expectations, but there's kind of it's almost like a sigh for Leo where he can just relax a little bit. And also during this time, Gabe comes out as gay. I meant to specify he's the first men's professional tennis player in this world to come out as gay. There is a lot of backlash. There is another player in the tournament who is just deeply and openly and outspokenly homophobic. And as Leo's game is changing, he is also open to sort of reconnecting with Gabe, and both of them really want to kind of put the past behind them because it hasn't served them. This rivalry, this competition between the two of them, it hasn't served them. And so they begin a friendship and then it becomes an attraction and they have to figure out what to do with that. And the first time they have a moment, which is a kiss in the kitchen, Leo doesn't handle it well because Leo doesn't want to be out. And so the story goes from there because then it becomes awkward between the two of them and they have to rebuild that and they have to talk about why this awkwardness happened in the first place and what they want to do about it moving forward. I will say there is a forced outing in this book as well, so be mindful of that if you are reading it, because basically it just highlights how toxic the sports industry can be for queer people. And I mean, if anything, over the last couple of months has proven is how toxic the sports industry can be. It doesn't matter which sport you are in. But this story was fabulous. Leo has the best group of friends around him. Ollie and Liv are Canadian players. Tess is a fellow US player who is in her 30s and is making a comeback and has the best run of her career. She's Leo's ride or die. And all of them kind of welcome and bring Gabe into the fold. The whole thing is just precious. It was so good. Can't recommend it enough. Really, really loved it. Which brings us to what am I planning on reading in the upcoming week. I'm currently listening to the audio of A Murder is Going Down by Kate Emery, which is an Australian young adult mystery title. I'm not that far into it, but I'm really enjoying it so far. I do need to read Voidverse because that does come out in this upcoming week. I thought it was coming out for this video, but it's better with next week's one. What else am I reading? I got a few more of Your Next Read books, so I'm hoping to pick some of those up. Go Luck Yourself because it's March. Might as well read this in March. And I'm hopefully going to start, oh actually no, the buzzword reading vlog. Oh, I might start it on Friday. Maybe. We'll see. But yes, that's what I've been reading over the last 7 days. In the comments, I'd love to know, what have you been reading? Have you read any of the books that I've talked about? Are you planning on picking any of them up? Feel free to let me know. If you just want to let me know that you're here, but you don't want to leave a comment, feel free to leave any kind of tennis related emoji. Otherwise, I hope that wherever you are in the world, you're staying safe and healthy, and I will see you in my next video. Thanks so much for watching. Bye everyone.